Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Convert Your Database into a Referral and Repeat Business with your MAPS coach, Steve Schleuter. Please note this webinar is being recorded and you'll automatically receive the webinar recording. If you have questions for your coach, please type them into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's fasttrack@kw.com. All right, that's all for me. Go ahead and take it away, Steve.
Hey, thanks, Jasmine. Hey, welcome everybody. Hey, today you're here to dig into obviously this number one business asset, your database. And again, my name's Steve Schleuter. I'm the co-author of Never Ending Referrals, and going to take you on a journey today to number one, understanding why this is more important to your business today than it's ever been. What some of the factors are that are driving this, and of course, with the Keller Waves Labs program, the technology that's being developed, it's all being developed so that you can be more successful with your most important business asset, this thing called a database. And so as we dive into this today, we often ask the question, and I think about what are some of the reasons people are here to get some insights around their database today. And number one, many people are tired of doing the battle for SEO optimization, or maybe circle prospecting just feels like a dead end, and the ups and downs of whether there's expireds to call or not to call, or for sale by owners, or the constant competition for them, and they want to know, where can I have an elegant, sustainable business? And the answer is in the relationships. Well, it's in the relationships that you already have. And so we're going to get started today, and today is an introduction to a program called Never Ending Referrals. And I'm going to give you some real meat to take away, and you'll take away from this hour we're going to spend together some ways of thinking about your business, thinking about your database that maybe you haven't quite looked at it that way before. We're going to kind of explore what the opportunity is financially residing in your database right now, possibly some hidden opportunity that you didn't know was there. And we'll take you on this journey to find out how you might choose to join us on this a comprehensive journey into your database and really creating a system. And so we're going to start with some thinking about our database. And yet, before we get into that, I'd like us to explore some opportunity. And so find a place to do some math, pull out a calculator. You do have a questions box there on your GoToWebinar control panel. I am flying solo today, and so what I would ask that if you have a question, make it very specific, because I may not see it right away. And if you say, would you repeat that? I probably don't know what you're referring to, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to handle your question. So let's jump into this, and you'll follow along with me and do some math. I'd like to explore, we know that numbers are the language of business, and I'd like to explore the numbers of your database and what your opportunity is. And let's go through right now, if you will, and do the math. And I'd like you for A, to write in how many are in your MET database, meaning these are the people that you know, they know you, you have them organized in a database, or if you don't have them organized, how many would be organized in that database if you had it put together? Some of us, don't have it put together, and that's okay. That's where you are today. So whether you have it together or you were to put it together, how many would be in it? And these are people you know, they know you, and let's start with that as kind of the premise. What do you currently have? And that's A. Now, I'd like you to take A for line B. It's going to be A times 0.10 times 10%. And let's do that math. And how many did you close last year from your database? So let's do 10% of A is B. And then how many did you close last year from your database? Or if you already know what that number is going to be for this year, put that in C. I'll give you an example. I have Mary. Mary in my office had 200 in her database. We did 10% of that. B would have been 20. I asked her, I said, how many transactions did you do last year from either direct referral or direct business from your database that turned into closings, and she said it was 12. So whatever your number is for the last 12 months or for 2017 would go into C. And I'd like you to do a simple calculation. Subtract C from B and put that number in D. It's alphabet soup here today, guys, I tell you. Put that number in D. And here's where we discover the big opportunity. This was about discovery to start with. What's the opportunity in my database? And I'd like you to take the gap between B and C, B a 10% return on your database, C how many you did, and that goes into D, and then multiply that times your average commission. And that's your opportunity that's sitting there right now that you can seize in the next 12 months by simply getting your database to a 10% return. And we're going to talk about why a 10% return here in a few moments. And yet let's figure out what that number is for you. And then I'm going to launch a poll and get a sense of where we are as a community, as the folks that are the 200 of you that are on here right now, where you are. All right. Okay, so let me launch a poll, and I'd like you all to participate. The way you get the most out of this is through participation. And here's the poll. So based upon E, what is your never-ending referrals 10% opportunity on line E? Are you one of the fortunate few who's already at a 10% or better return on your database? Is it 1,000 to 25,000? Is it 25 to 60, 60 to 100, or more than $100,000? Let's get everybody voting. It's voting season. We just had all kinds of voting going on. You know how to do this. So Arnold, my C is larger than my B. Congratulations. We're going to dig into that here in a minute too. So you're going to start working on same with you, Shonda, y'all are going to start working on a bigger opportunity, and yet we're finding out where we are. And so I've got only 35% of you voted so far, so let's get everybody to vote. Do the math. All right, there you're voting. Let's see, you did the math, you figured it out. Let's get a few more of you here, and then we're going to see what the consensus is. E is just E on the chalkboard right there. So E is your commissions that are available to you if you were at a 10% return on your database. All right, so let me close the poll, and let's take a look at it. So if we look again at the formula here, D is the gap between a 10% return and how many you actually did times your average commission. So that's by getting a 10% return, that's how many additional dollars are available to you right now by simply upping your database to a 10% returns. 29% of you have more than $100,000. Almost a third of you have $100,000 available to you in additional income right now in your database. Another 16% of you have 60 to 100,000. 21% of you have a new car, 25,000 to 60,000 available. About a quarter of you, up to at least another 25,000. And 7% of you, congratulations, already have a 10% or greater return on your database, maybe. And we're going to ask you one more question. I'm going to ask you a crazy question. And this is all about revealing opportunity that maybe we don't know that we have. And so let me dig into this. I've got one more question for you. This is going to be a crazy question. You're going to think it's off the wall, and I'm going to ask you to play hard. And so here's the question. And let's say you are throwing the 4th of July parties of all 4th of July parties. And if you're Canada, it's Canada Day. And you're throwing the party of all parties, and money is no object. Your favorite musician is going to play your 4th of July party. You've won a contest. You get to pick your favorite popular artist who's going to play your 4th of July party. Now, Mary in my office, I asked her this question Because here's what happened with Mary. I'm having a conversation with Mary about her database, and she said she's got a database of 200. And I'm going, no way Mary's got a database of 200. She's involved in her church. She's got 5 kids. They're all active and into activities. No way she only has 200 relationships. So I asked her the same question I'm going to ask you right now. Who's that person that would play your party? And she said Beyonce. Me, it'd be the Zac Brown Band. And I said, Mary, if you were to throw a party with Beyonce, and it's the 4th of July blowout of all blowouts, and everybody that you know desires to be there, the way they get in the door is they have to come to the door and they say, here's how I know Mary. Mary would at least know me as a friend or an acquaintance or somebody from church or, some other, avenue through the kids. She'd know who I was. I said, Mary, how many are going to be at your 4th of July blowout? And Mary told me, Steve, it'd be at least, 600, 700. And then I just stood there quietly and she goes, oh. So all of a sudden she had a gap of at least 650 versus the 250 she said she had. And all of a sudden they're going, so Mary, you mean you've got another 450 or so relationships that we're not accounting for? Think about a 10% return on that and what that would represent. So here I've got another question for you. I want you to answer this question. Going back to that exercise, what did you put in A? And then when you think about your 4th of July blowout, if you use the same criteria I had with Mary, how many people would be at your 4th of July blowout? Keeping it reasonably local, excluding the real estate agents that you know, how many people would be there? And is it more than you wrote down in A? And if so, how much more than you wrote down in A? I'm going to launch another poll, and I want you to tell me what you learned in the 4th of July conversation. Do you have less than 20 additional names that would be on your list? Do you have 21 to 50, 51 to 80 more, 81 to 120 more, or more than 120 additions that would add to your database? Because many times our opportunity, well, it's bigger than we think. And yeah, Holly, so how many would be at your blowout 4th of July party, Holly, and is it more than you currently have in your database? That's the question. And if so, how much more? And enter that in the poll.
She went to the.
Hey, Jasmine, I'm hearing background from y'all over there. Thank you. All right, let's see what we have on the poll. Let's get a few more votes in. How many more did you have? And let's take a look. We're going to close the poll. Let me share the results. So 41% of you in one question revealed that you've got at least 120 additional people you could add to your database. Now, at a 7,000 average commission, that would be $84,000 at minimum at 120. 15% of you at a 10% return on your database with additional 81 to 120 at a 7,000 commission, it's 56 to 84,000 additional dollars. That's on top of what you put down in E on the previous page. And so we're going to go in and now we got to explore, how do we start converting to our 10% return? What is the journey that we go on here? And I'm going to start with, let me hide the results here, and we're going to go into this. And I want to share with you something that Tony DeCello, Mr. Diana Kokoska, some people know him, and I discovered a number of years ago on the Shift book tour. And this is important in terms of setting some foundation, because maybe you think you're the only one that doesn't have your database really put together. And I'm going to share with you a story that shows that, well, that's far from true. And we're going to have to rethink how we approach our database if we're going to really have success with it at a high level. And so Tony and I are in the Shift book tour. It's September 11th, 2008. So we're going back 10 years. The economies that we're going into the Great Recession, and Tony and I are on the Shift book tour. I'm Tony's backup. Tony's been asked by Gary to take Shift out on the road. And during the first presentation we were doing in Chicago, Tony asked a question of the audience. He said, how many of you are touching your Met database 28 to 33 times per year through some channel, whether it's email, direct mail, personal contact, my some channel? And 15% of the room stood up. Now, that was over 600 people in the room, 15% stood up. Tony and I looked at each other and we're going, it's not a good number. And then he asked a clarifying question. He said, of y'all standing, how many of you did a pure 33 touch? Meaning, of those 28 to 33 contacts, at least 4 of them were face-to-face or over the phone personal contact. And the room, ladies and gentlemen, went from 15% standing to 3%. And this is something Tony and I coined as the 3% crisis. And in our minds, it was really a crisis. And Tony and I, we tested this room after room, unfortunately, month after month and year after year, and 3% kept showing up. In fact, Zillow recently did a study of homeowners who had closed a year prior, and they asked about the regularity of contact from their agent, and 6% answered never. And these were, 6% answered regularly. I'm sorry, let me correct that. 6% answered regularly. And these are people that had just closed a year prior, and only 6% answered regularly. And so we know that this is true, and the surveys say that it's true, and it's truly a crisis. And I want to talk to you about why it's more important than ever today. And in the questions box, let's learn how to use your questions box a little bit. I'd like you to share with me what these 3 have in common: the travel agent, the video rental store owner, and the real estate agent. What do they all have in common? Let's get you to chime in the questions box. What do they have in common? Sales, says Dolores. Okay, what else? Quasi-obsolescence, says Holly. Well said. I think you spelled it right, too. Good job. Smile, sales, service competition, severe competition from the internet, replaceable careers, commission-based. Their clients went digital, outdated, says Chris. Wow, let's hope that that's not true for the real estate agent. They're being replaced with technology, systemic shift in their industries. Yes, yeah, people. So a lot of great answers. Perfect. Okay, y'all can stop answering. I'm going to clear this, and I didn't see the answer unless it came later. There's a lot of correct answers there, a lot of good answers, and here's one thing they have in common. Expedia, Netflix, and Zillow. Well, those aren't the same. So let me share with you the travel agent. The travel agent got dramatically, in fact, write this word down. It's a dirty word. Don't call Mo Anderson or Maps Coaching and tell them Steve used a dirty word on here. Yet I'm going to use a dirty word. It's called disintermediation. Disintermediation. We call it a dirty word because in our industry, there's a lot of that's attempting to get done. And disintermediation means to get between you and your client. To disintermediate you is what we would call the fiduciary, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And yet what they've got in common, Expedia, well, it's not what they have in common, it's who they have in common. See, Expedia was founded by a gentleman named Rich Barton. And Expedia was the beginning of the disintermediation of the travel agent. Then Blockbuster, well, they got Netflixed. And of course, Gary told that story, at family reunion. And well, Rich Barton's on the board of directors for Netflix. And Rich also founded a little company called Zillow. And so when you think about this, what they all have in common, well, travel agent got disintermediated, Blockbuster got, really nailed by Netflix, and well, the real estate agent, we know that that game is still on right now. And let me tell you about why the real estate agent has continued to win that game, and yet there's more risk than ever before with where technology has come to the real estate agent. Well, maybe being disintermediated, but let me tell you about an advantage you have. And this is a conversation I had with Gary Keller a number of years ago. And Gary, Gary and I were having a conversation around e-commerce. I spent 4.5 years as team leader of the Austin Northwest Market Center, and Gary was my operating principal. So I got to spend time with Gary every week. And we were having a conversation one day about a thing called commodities. And the reason you have to understand this when it comes to this conversation around your database is you have to decide what kind of commodity you're going to be. Now, we started having a conversation about e-commerce and how it related to real estate. And he said, there's this thing called commodities. And he said a standard commodity, that's a real easy e-commerce deal, because books are books, whether you get them at Amazon, whether you get it at the brick and mortar store. A book is a book is a book. Sundries are sundries. Shampoo is shampoo. Then he's talked about choice commodities. He said, think about an airline. You just have to go on and say, when do you choose to go? What class of service would you like? And what's your destination and where are you starting from? And you make some choices and you decide whether you want insurance, and you select your seat. Because that's a pretty easy e-commerce transaction. And then he said, now imagine you're going to buy a set of golf clubs. Let's say you chose to buy some ping golf clubs, custom clubs, because certainly your handicap couldn't be your swing, right? It's never the operator. It's got to be the clubs. It's got to be. And so I'm going to go get a set of custom ping golf clubs, probably about $2,300. They have a provision on their website where I can do it all online. And yet, do I trust myself to get all those measurements right? What if I'm kind of borderline on one of the questions that they ask, and if I get it wrong, I might get a $2,300 lump of graphite and metal that just really isn't what I intended, and I wasted my dollars. So I'm probably not going to do it online. Maybe 5% of hobbyists would. Everybody else, well, we're going to go to a pro shop. We're going to get it done right. And we wouldn't transact that e-commerce wise. And then we get to this thing we call unique commodity. And this is where most real estate is. I was with a group of real estate agents in a marina doing a class, and we're overlooking these wonderful sailboats in Lake Conroe and these waterfront homes across the water. And I said, think about how fortunate it is that we deal in something called a unique commodity. And because it's a unique commodity, it's not really easily e-commerced, if you will. And so the good news for you as real estate agents is we dealing mostly custom and unique commodities that don't lend themselves to e-commerce the way that choice and standard commodities do. And because of that, we thought we were safe for a really long time. And yet there are new forces in our industry today that it's not about the real estate, it's now about the real estate agent. And the decision that you have to make right now, this is why your database and this conversation today, and I might be loving you with a 2x4 a little bit, because I'm about to share with you why Tony and I were over there and that 3% crisis is going on. We're going, we've got to get a solution to this because our whole industry is dependent on it. And here's what I mean. See, there are industry forces out there that today, ladies and gentlemen, that want to turn you into what we call a functionary. And I want you to look at the left side of this page. And see, Gary and I started talking about this more than 10 years ago. And gosh, way longer than 10 years ago, when he wrote the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. We were having this conversation before then. And the functionary component is people would like to turn you into low level, low relationship. Look at the bottom, replaceable and minimally paid. And the way you take your position, as a fiduciary, which is, by the way, high level, high relationship, accepting high responsibility, being irreplaceable and highly paid, if you look at the bottom on the right side, is you have to add value to people. And that value to people is compounded over time through a 36, 38, 40 touch that we do with a database. And so it's not an option today. We have to get this thing nailed. We have to do it skillfully. Your database can no longer, and in the future, will no longer be something you set and forget. It's something you're very tactical about. And that's what we're going to talk about as we jump into this. And so, Gary made a comment. He's been making this comment for years. Is your goal is to be the economist of choice for your local real estate market? He said it's your professional duty to provide them perspective. And these are some of the sessions that we teach in Never Ending Referrals. One of our sessions, for example, is the local economist trusted advisor session. We go through how you interpret data, how you take that position with your database. And we're going to give you some tips here today to get you thinking differently about your database. Now, one other thing before we get into the heart of the system of Never Ending Referrals and start giving you some of those tips is, why is it that agents struggle with their database? And we're going to get into some of that right here. And I'm going to take about 3 minutes to explain this. And if you've ever taken the 6 personal perspectives, you'll recognize this graph. We call it going from E to P, or entrepreneurial to purposeful. And in a conversation I had with Gary Keller one afternoon, he was explaining this to me different than I had heard it before. And he said, Steve, there are a lot of people that suffer from a curse. In fact, we coined it the high achiever's curse. And he said the high achiever, in fact, he said if you'll look over here on the right side under purposeful style, you'll see that a purposeful style is made up of 5 things. It's focus, strategic options, models, systems, and accountability. And when people get stuck at a ceiling, and they're attempting to break through to higher levels of achievement, he said a purposeful style is represented by these 5 things. And I'd like you to put write those things down: focus, options, models, systems, and accountability. And then when you write that down, put an asterisk next to focus and put an asterisk next to accountability. And see, he said the high achiever's curse is that most high achievers, on their way, they have very high ceilings, and on their way to their ceiling, they're able to achieve by just sheer focus of will and sheer accountability. And he said the mistake that a high achiever makes is they're so used to being able to accomplish a lot with focus and accountability that they ignore the middle 3. And he said, in fact, he called it the often forgotten middle 3. And he said the real key to sustained breakthroughs and high personal accomplishment is the middle 3. And so it's the strategic options, it's the models, it's the systems. And so what we do in Never Ending Referrals is exactly this. And I'm going to share with you how we do that in a moment, is we take you and we explore the best options for you. We apply the models that frankly come from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and systems that support your options and models. And then Gary said, once you get the middle 3 right, then you bring focus, then you bring accountability. And this is probably not a way you've heard this before. And so the goal here we're going to introduce you a little bit today to the models and some options and systems. For example, some of you that are on here today and you desire to build a powerful database, you may have just moved to your community and you have 26 people in the database and you'd like to build it 100, 200, 250. And the options are going to be different for you than the person who's maybe serving a market they've lived in all their life, and they have lots of relationships and they're high social. And so our job here is to take you on a journey to finding the middle three that you can bring then focus and accountability to get the level of success that you desire. And so that being said, let's dig in, and I want to take you on a journey into what we call the 4 laws of the database. You might want to write these down, and if you've been to Bold, you've heard these before. And the entire system that we're going to talk about today is built on these 4 laws. It's number 1, you got to build it and you got to organize it. So we're going to go through, how do you set up your database so that it works effectively? How do you organize it so that you can access it to do the most important work and communicate with it effectively? Number 2, second law is you feed it daily, and you got to keep it growing and healthy. And we got the strategies for that. Communicate systematically is the third law. And then, of course, the fourth one's kind of intelligence tests. Work everything that comes from it. And essentially, that's working a system and having a follow-up system that's robust, that makes sure that your opportunities don't fall through the cracks. And our stated goal on this journey is to make sure that the system supports you in being successful with this, regardless of behavioral style. Now, I'm what we would call a high assertive, or if you're familiar with the DISC, it would be a high D. And these are the behaviors of our Keller Personality Assessment, the KPA. As a high assertive, I was told when I started my real estate career, Steve, just be best friends with all your clients and you'll get a lot of referrals. And my attitude was, I got 4 friends. I don't need any more friends. I need sales. And what I learned over time is I was able to be successful not being everybody's best friend, because I couldn't do that authentically. It wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be real. And when we're outside of our preferred behavior and we attempt to be somebody we're not, we feel inauthentic. And I believe that my experience tells me that the biggest impediment, if you will, to agents really working a database is they feel inauthentic in how they connect with their database. And if they're thinking they've got to be everybody's best friend, I can't be that for everybody, and thus they just don't engage. When I learned that I could be their trusted advisor, their local real estate economist, I said, that's the person I can be. And so as we go through Never Ending Referrals, we touch on how do you do this and do it in honoring your behavioral style so that you're able to give your database the gift of your authentic self. If you're not giving them the gift of your authentic self, you won't do it. So let's get into some specific strategies. And what I will share with you is if you're familiar with the 6 personal perspectives, you've learned a thing called the GPS, or the 1-3-5. In Never Ending Referrals, our goal is to get you to a 10% return on your database while growing it by 250 people in a 12-month period. And we do that by focusing on 5 laws for each of the 4 bold laws. Not bold laws, the 4 laws of the database, and then 5 strategies that are right for you for building and organizing it, for feeding it, for communicating it, and working all the leads that come from it. And those 5 strategies are going to be different for each and every one of you, depending on where you're starting from. And the end goal at the end of the 8 weeks of Never Ending Referrals is to help you find your 5 strategies, the ones that are right for you, not the right for the person who has a different situation. You're going to find your 5 that you're able to execute on. So let's dive into this. And I want to share with you a fundamental. We're going to start diving into the 4 laws right now. Now, many of you taken Bold, and I'm a Bold coach. I started with Diana in the beginning of Bold, and about 4 years into it, starting to have a lot of repeat students in Bold who've taken it now 2 or 3 times. In session, in step, I guess it's step 4, when we're talking about the database, this slide shows up. And the question on 36 touch or 33 touch was personal telephone calls. Diana suggested calling 2 letters of the alphabet a week by last name. And I asked the room, I said, how many of you are doing this? So if you've taken Bold before, you've been introduced to this concept, how many of you are actually doing it? And I had a room of 90 students and 0 hands went up. I went to my next location that week, another 90 students, same question, 0 hands went up. Third location, you guessed it, what happened? 0 hands went up. And I asked the question of myself, and I had a conversation with Tony DeCello and shared with him the experience. And the aha that we had from this was that nobody was having a conversation around the agents on a regular basis. They'd seen this once, they've seen it twice, they've seen it 3 times. And I said, such an elegant little strategy, because if you call 2 letters a week, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. That means you get through it every 13 weeks. You touch them 4 times a year. And the studies have been done that says the majority of referrals are generated from personal contact. And so knowing that, we said something has to be done in this area. How do we create a conversation around the associates that causes them to focus on this little strategy or a strategy every week of every year in working their database? And we developed a little concept we call DTD2, and it stands for doing the database too. And so we gave each week a theme. In fact, we started this in my market centers. I'm an operating principal. I'm involved in multiple market centers. And we launched this thing through our productivity coaching program we call DTD2. And in Never Ending Referrals, we take you through how to set up your database DTD2 style, how to use social media DTD2 style. And then now you also have a schedule for every week of the year. 4 times a year, you call your B&Es that week. On another week, you're calling your INQs. And we have a theme. For example, INQ week, brilliant agents work their database. On P&L week, it's, profit baby is the theme, right? And the reason we did this is nobody was having a conversation around the database on a weekly basis. And so we started having this, and each week, and it was on everybody's email, and it became kind of a battle cry that we call DTD2. So one of the first things that we do in the build it phase of taking you through this, and is we take you through how to set up your CRM. I don't know where the M went, DTD2 style. And so we create your DTD2 groups, and we provide you with the tutorials on just how to do that in your CRM. And as command comes on, we'll have smart plans for DTD2 that we'll pass on to you through our Facebook group. We take you through the tutorials of importing your contacts if that's not been done, and how we populate them DTD2 style. And then, so we take you right through the tutorials, right through the ways to set it up. And our tutorials are e-edge based for now. They'll be command based as it comes out. And we take you through right to set it up. The same principles will apply to Top Producer, Brevity, or any other CRM tool that you're using. Now, when it comes to Feed It, we take you through some strategy. In fact, I gave you a script today. If you'll go to your handouts tab on your GoToWebinar control panel, I gave you a script. I wanted to make sure you left with some powerful meat today. And I'm going to give you a script that is going to help you add to your database. In session 3, we get into business-to-business database building. You probably remember the Yellow Pages script in bold. And in Never Ending Referrals, one of the scripts we add to you is the 5-star script. In fact, if you'll pull it on the GoToWebinar control panel, you can take it and download it, and it's there for you right now. But let me walk you through this little script. It would go like this. I call somebody in my database. It's one of the easiest database calls you can make. And I said, hey, Mary, it's Steve over at Keller Williams. Hey, thanks for taking my call. I was calling today to see if you could help me with a little project we're working on for some of our friends and clients. And as a real estate professional, Mary, I've got people coming to town constantly that are in need for professional services. They either need contractors or a CPA, or who's going to help them with their, getting their nails done or their hair done. And we keep a directory of people like this, and we're building a 5-star directory. And I'm just curious, in the last 2 weeks or so, who's giving you a 5-star service experience? Just who's really just blown your socks off? And let's say that Mary says to me, Three Trees Landscaping. We just hired this company, Three Trees Landscaping, to do our yard work. And they come and they keep it so neat. I don't have to ask them to do the details. They just do it. They know what to do to have our yard at the best it can be. And I'd say, well, that's fantastic. Who's your contact at Three Trees Landscape? And she gives me Rick. And I say, would it be okay if I used your name when I contacted Rick? I'd love to add them to our directory, and it would be okay as I listed you as a recommending party. And they say yes. I go, well, fantastic. Now I call Rick, and I have a warm business-to-business lead that, and of course, we'll teach you how to convert that into a person that will actually give you referrals. Many times we don't understand that as the first, second, third point of contact for people moving into an area, the opportunity for us to give referrals is tremendous. Then I go on with Mary and I say, well, Mary, thanks. I really appreciate your help. Maybe there's another introduction you can help me with. One of the areas that I really am looking to fill a slot in our 5-star service providers are great CPAs or tax preparers. I've had a couple of requests for that this year, and honestly, I don't have somebody in that slot. Do you happen to know a 5-star introduction you could give me as a CPA? And let's say Mary says, no, we really don't. In fact, we could use one ourselves. And I go, I tell you what, when I do find a great, 5-star CPA or tax preparer, would you like me to pass that on to you or connect you? And Mary says, absolutely. Now I continue to go through my DTD2 cycles, calling through that 2-letter group that week using the same script, the next week the same script with the next DTD2 group. And let's say that I identify 10 of my people that are looking for a great 5-star preparer or CPA. And then I get 2 great recommendations. Now, when I call the warm referral, I might have 5 each in terms of referrals. Yeah, like Amazon. There you go, right? Yeah. And so you see this opportunity. This is a powerful little dialogue, and I call this one a triple play. They see that we have high standards. We're asking for 5-star relationships. We get an opportunity to get a warm referral from our database. We have the opportunity to possibly give a great referral to our database when we find that right preparer. And then actually it's a home run, because now we get another new business-to-business relationship potentially in some of those CPAs, and we go to them with referrals in hand, and we are an absolute rock star going into that. So it's a powerful conversation. You get to add value. You've got tools like your Homekeeper app where you can build this into your own personal Angie's List. And Gary asked the question a number of years ago. He says, why does Angie's List even exist? It shouldn't exist. They should be coming to you. And these are these opportunities for us to add value between buy and sell cycles, which typically today are 8 to 9 years. And it's an opportunity for us to have high value add items of value or services of value to our database. So let's go to communicate. I'm going to give you a social media tip here that could really enhance the way you handle social media. Let's jump into this. We have a little strategy around social media we call the CARE method. It stands for connect, alert, refer, and engage. And so when I'm getting into engage people on social media, I'm going to filter everything through, okay, what are my connect opportunities through social media today? Or alert, what do I need to alert my database to? Or is there something I can be referring out to my database via social media? And how can I use social media to engage? And so we have a whole section in session 3 where we go through some examples. In fact, in our session 8 on video, we go through how do you care via video. And let me give you a strategy in setting up your social media here that can help you make the most of this. how do you set up your let's use Facebook as the example for right now. How do you set up your Facebook DTD2 style? We talked about those 2-letter groups, right? And what if you were to set up your social media so that on the B&E week, when I'm about to call my B&Es, I can open up Facebook and only see the feeds of my B&E people, the people whose last name ends with B or last name ends with E, and those are the only feeds that I'm able to see. And so I'm more likely to see them, and when I see them, I can comment, I can like, I can maybe see something that is common ground that I can start a call with. There's so many great things that can happen. Now, if I'm going to be calling my B&Es next week, I might choose to also do a broadcast message to the people that I have in that group. And how do I set this up? So let me walk you through this. And it's called creating a Facebook custom list. Now, we have groups that we set up in our CRM. In Facebook, it's called list. And so let's show you how you get there. And you want to screenshot this, hit Shift Command 3 on a Mac, or I'm not sure what it is on a PC. Go ahead and screenshot this if you choose to. And so once you're there and you get on your home page, you're going to go to See More. So you notice over here on the lower left of the screen, you're going to go click on See More. And then what's going to show up is this thing called Friends List. So you'll click on Friends List, and Friends List is then going to open up, and it's going to give you the option up here to create list. And you'll click on Create List, and when you do, you're going to give your list a name. Now, we've created these 13 2-letter groups, and so we're going to name it one of our groups. And let's say that we decided to name it the H and V group. You'll see right here we've got the H and V, and then I'm going to start populating that by putting in H or putting in V here, and it's going to pull up my folks whose last names end with V or H or whatever I've put in, and I can start adding them. And I'm going to probably only add the people that are in my database, or that could be a separate H and V group, could be everybody else. And yet I go through and I select those people and I put them into my H and V custom list. Now, there's a trick to this. And it used to be you could bulk update and click, 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 and then put them all in at one time. And then there's also another, in the most recent update, it's not allowing you to do that. I'm trusting that's going to come back. If not, it's a little bit tedious this way. And yet once you have it set up, the power of it is in what you can do to look at just one small group at a time, or broadcast message, which we'll teach you to do in session 3. Broadcast message to a group becomes quite powerful. Now, one thing that we do is after we do the V's, I'll do the VA or VIs and VOs. For some reason, it doesn't always catch them all with just the V, and you'll see that there's some it didn't catch. And if you just start going through the vowels and so forth with it, you'll pick up the remainder. And then, of course, you'll note here, I'm getting ready to do a broadcast message. It says comment below with your zip code, and I'll send you market statistics for your area. And you notice I'm just sending this to one group. It's just going to my B&E group. And so I can select just my BE, or I can hit the drop-down list, and I can send it to a different group if I choose, or to all my friends. I've got all these options. It allows me to be extremely targeted, to get through some of the algorithms, because I've got a select group to make sure that I increase my chances of being seen. And then lastly, we get to work it. We talked about the 4 laws, and we take you through, how do you organize your database? How do you create that foolproof follow-up system for nurturers so that they don't fall through the cracks? So how do we get started on this? Now, there's 8 sessions of never-ending referrals, and we go through setting the foundation, which is what is your opportunity, and how do we begin to look at these 4 laws? Who are you being is where we take you through how you succeed with this thing called a database for any behavioral style. And we get into some of the strategies like the 5-star script and the Ford model. Then we get into business-to-business social media. Session 4 is all about client events. In fact, we have an interview with the daily group who takes you through how they do 150 to 200 transactions a year, primarily through 6 key events and then some smaller events each year. In the session on 7 to Cement, we teach you how do you launch a relationship with your database so that it's primed for that 10% return. We then take you into how do you become the local expert, that trusted advisor. In session 7, we get into geo-farming the other database, and in the last session, it's harnessing the power of video. And we take you through some examples of caring with video, community videos, things to really create that deeper connection and value adds to your database. So how do you get involved in this journey? The normal price for the 8-week session or 8-session workshop of Never-Ending Referrals is $249. Today, if you go to getmapsnow.com, there's a 15% discount that'll automatically be applied. So for less than $212, you get 8 sessions and you get on-demand video and resources plus live sessions with the coaches to take you through this journey called Never-Ending Referrals. And so it's Get Maps Now, and I'm going to come in and answer questions here in a minute that you have, so be specific with your questions. Now, the next launch date of this is January 4th. So we'll be launching again. Let me make sure I got that correct. I think that I actually told you wrong. January 4th is our next launch date of Never-Ending Referrals. And so if you go to Get Maps Now, you're going to get this for less than $212. And it's the 8 sessions, the 8 workshops. And today, I trust you got some value with the 5-star script, thinking about the 4 laws of the database, seeing what the opportunity is at just a 10% return. And here's what we know. 10% return can be just the beginning. The millionaire real estate agent is essentially the model is a 17% return, where Gary talks about the 2 for 12 return on your database is actually a 17% return. Yet we know the first journey for most is, well, you got to get to 10%, and then you build upon that. So let me go to some of your questions that you have right here. Melissa asked, she said, so the content of 36 Touch has to be tactical. Ideally, when we say tactical, the most important parts of it, Melissa, are really the personal contact. And how do we add the most value we can through a personal conversation that's value added coming from contribution, not salesy. In fact, in session 2, when we get in the session on behavior, it's all about how do you have real value added conversations versus salesy talk. And we take you through the Ford model and what does it really mean to have a Ford conversation? We've all heard of family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And yet, do we know how it fits into how that model really works with active listening and how the response leads to the next question and how to really have a conversation around somebody's highest values? And so the conversations are tactical, and over time, you're going to want to make your content hyper-local. The tab, David, should be labeled handouts on your GoToWebinar control panel for the download. I think, Kelly, we answered that. That's through the Never-Ending Referrals program, 8-session program. Shonda, great question. She said, if people don't answer, do you ask for a callback or do you give an idea of why you're calling? And typically, we teach a little method at session 1 we call the 3-attempt approach. And we always make people, we always make it okay for them not to call us back. We never want anybody to linger with the feeling that they have an obligation to call us or that they have an unfulfilled obligation to call us that they never fulfilled. And so if I were calling with the 5-star script, I would simply have a voicemail that would say, hey, it's Steve at Keller Williams. Hey, I'm working on a little project that I thought you could help with. And I know you're probably busy. Don't feel like you need to call me back. I will give you a shout later in the week, see if maybe I can catch up with you then. And yet I know everybody's busy. If you can call back, you can reach me at blah, 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 blah. Probably best to catch me between blank and blank. or I'll give you another attempt later in the week. And again, no worries if you can't reach out. I know everybody's busy. Take care. Never leave them feeling like they let you down because they didn't return a call. Great question. Great question. Love it. When does NER start? It's going to be about $212. Starts on the 4th of January. What if you're not with KW? Can you still sign up? You absolutely can, Sam. So just go to the same website. If for any reason, if you're not being with Keller Williams, it doesn't allow you to sign up there, let me give you an email address, Sam. It's fasttrack at kw.com, F-A-S-T, track, T-R-A-C-K, at kw.com. Just tell them you want to enroll for Never Ending Referrals, that you were on the webinar, and they'll be happy to do that for you, okay? Can we see videos of previous 8-week sessions before January 4th? If we have a whole new version of this is launching January 4th, so there aren't previous videos, Shonda, and it's currently been a 12-week session. It was higher priced at $299. We consolidated it into 8 weeks, and it's all new. So time commitment for the program. Melinda, you're going to have access to a on-demand version of this. So we will have Facebook Live opportunities and webinars for you to engage with the coaches, and then you're going to have access to the material on demand, so you can watch it at your leisure. It had been scheduled webinars. We are now coming on with a powerful video-based program. It's in the final phases of development right now, so you'll have access 24/7. You could do all 8 weeks in a weekend if you chose to, and then come to the live portions with the coaches that will also be recorded and available to you. So you're going to really have access to it anytime, whether it's the recorded on-demand portion or the webinars with the coaches. It's all recorded, available to you in the coach live sessions, generally on Fridays. And yet you're going to have the on-demand anytime you want. And we're going to launch that January 4th. Okay. So, Shonda, you could take the current session that is about to wrap up. If you contacted Fast Track at kw.com, say, hey, I would love to enroll in the one that's going on right now and be able to go watch the recordings, you could do that, absolutely. It'll be up for another 60 days before they take it down. Talk to Fast Track about that, and they could likely help you with that. Perfect. Here, what is the basic info you need in your database to use it efficiently? This comes from Catherine. She says, I get prospects through Facebook ads, Messenger, and radio. The session we're working on here, Catherine, the database focus we're bringing here is we're going to focus on the people that meet 3 criteria. People that you know and like, people that know you and ideally like you, and that you'd be willing to call no less than twice per year. That's your core database. We're going to start from that. The second part of the database we're going to then get into is business to business database. Where do we build new business to business relationships in here to help grow it? And then as we launch new relationships in our session on 7 Cement, we are going to go through and what are the ways that we really cement these relationships so that they become the type of people that are going to refer us. All right. And I trust that now, as far as just, cold leads that are coming through, this is not that database that we're working. There was a study done by NAR that said cold internet leads are about a 1 in 1,800 conversion. We're going for a 10% return on database, and that's a whole different animal. All right. Regarding CRM, when will Command be available? That's outside my pay grade, so that this class will allow us to use it. Now, what we'll do is our tutorials will be updated as things change, and as soon as the tutorials for Command are built, we'll make those available to previous students. Those will be sent to you, so you're going to get those. You won't be missing out. If you get it built in eEdge, it's going to import right over without any challenges. Command likely late first quarter is what I'm hearing. I'm not the person who controls that, and I would not want to overpromise you. So there you go. How's that for politically correct, or technology correct, if you will? David, got it. Perfect. Not finding the downloads, Mika. It's under handouts. It's on your GoToWebinar control panel where the questions box and all that is. And if for any reason you're not able to find it, email fasttrack@kw.com. I'll send it to Jasmine there, and she'll send it to you. Okay. Will it coordinate with command? David says yes, it will. And the way it will is we give you tech tutorials for whatever the product of the moment is right now. So our current tutorials are e-edge. As soon as command comes out, we'll update the tutorials and you'll be sent to you. Okay. And my name, Ken, I'm sorry to make you wait all this long for the name. My name is Steve Schlueter, Schlueter. I'm the coach of Never Ending Referrals, bold coach, operating principal. Steve Schlueter, Schlueter. Answered command, got it. We're at 90 transactions, 40 million gross, 1.3 million GCI with 7 people on the team, only 4 agents, 3 support. I'd like to engage the entire team in participating in Touch the Database efforts. Any suggestions on compensation models that scale to keep all involved? After doing your do the math calculation, I realized we have hundreds we could be contacting, and all those they'll connect with us. Do me a favor, John, email me personally. You've got a bigger question than we can answer right here. My direct email is Steve S, Steves @kw.com, Steve S @kw.com. And anybody that has a really big team, big database, you've got some bigger things, and put a phone number in there too. I'll call you and we'll have a conversation around it. We've got a team in Tennessee. The guys get about 100 million, and they operate DTD2 style, all this, and I'm sure we can dive into some of that for you. Okay, John. Yeah, my pleasure, my friend. How long is each session? About an hour commitment, as far as that goes. And of course, you'll have action items and tutorials that you'll be digging into that are going to extend that. It's not just watch it. It's watch it and then do, and it's watch it and watch the tutorials. It's get into your CRM. It's actually do the work. It's putting the systems in place. Yes, we will be building what's called smart plans for DTD2 and Never Ending Referrals, 5-star script. All those things will go into command upon its availability and launch. Lion's Desk, but want to utilize command when available. We've covered that one. For leaving a message. Michael, it's simply if I leave a message, I'd say, hey, it's Steve. Sorry, I didn't catch you today. Had a quick question, a little project we're working on. Thought you could help me with. No worries if you can't call me back. I'll give you another shout later in the week. Maybe we can connect then. If not, no worries. I know you're busy. Take care. Talk to you soon. Just again, make it simple. Does it matter which CRM? Carmen, really no. Every CRM, has the ability to create groups. If you're not currently using one, I would use e-edge because I know the easy import that it's going to represent into command, and because of the nature of smart plans and everything that's going to be available to you via command, that would be the smart move. If you're in something else, we'll give you instructions as we go to their tutorial section and look how to create a group or how to classify a contact or whatever the case may be. Usually most common CRM providers give you tutorials on how to do the key things that we're going to have you do. Ladies and gentlemen, our goal in Never Ending Referrals is to keep it checkers, not chess. What's the old saying today now, that simple is the new sexy, and none of this that we take you through is complicated. Will we receive a link so we can listen and watch this webinar again? You absolutely will, Kelly. Yep. All right. So Carmen, you're using Top Producer. That one's so common that number one, I would believe that the imports are going to be okay. And in the meantime, just go to your top two producer tutorials and the same principles we're introducing. How do I set up a group? Top producer does all that. You should be able to be just fine for now. Okay. Follow-up Boss. Is our plan to integrate Follow-up Boss and or MailChimp with KW Command? Now, MailChimp is going to be on your dashboard for Command, because I'm in the Command lab. MailChimp is your email engine for Command. So yeah, the answer is yes on MailChimp. Follow-Up Boss, I believe that what will happen through the cloud, it all depends on, Laura, it all depends on whether they sign the data pledges and so forth. So anybody that's choosing to interact with the Keller Cloud and our associates is going to have to sign a data pledge that says they're not going to use your data for anything, outside of the context of Keller Williams. They are building and integrating into Command, our own versions of all these great tools. Specifically around Follow-Up Boss, you might have to inquire with them if they're moving that direction. I haven't heard anything one way or to the contrary yet. There on Laura. That's I'm not losing bandwidth. I got the hiccups. Excuse me. Yeah, I certainly see that happening, Laura. And put in requests, recommendations for the labs. Follow-Up Boss is popular enough that I believe that its capacities and capabilities will be on some phase of development of the Command platform. And if you're in any of the labs, and on Kelly to the side where you can put in request or recommendations, put it in there. They're listening. They really are listening at a high level. Okay, hang on a second here, folks. I think I got one more question. The B&E and other graphics you showed, were those just examples of the 2 alphabet letters the whole team would work on that week? Yeah, we have the whole schedule. In fact, we've got the whole 2019 schedule for the 13 2-letter groups. We'll give you that schedule, the graphics for all that. That becomes part of the package we give you, and they're PDFs, and you can put them in. We have some people print them into big 3 by 6 foot banners, and they hang them up in their market centers or in their team rooms. Whenever it's that 2-letter group that week, it becomes truly a battle cry. It's screensavers. It's they print them up and put them up in their workspace as a reminder of what the focus is that week. How often do you update the Facebook list? Well, here's the great thing is once you've created your Facebook DTD2 groups, as you friend new people and bring new people into your Facebook community, you just add them to a group as it goes. So it doesn't require ongoing updating. Once you've created those groups, you put them in as you go, and it just becomes an automatic part of classifying them. So you're set. All right, let me see. Shonda, I love that you've got so many great questions. Would you say to reduce your database to only those who are local for this database way of doing things? Awesome, thank you. This was excellent. Thank you for all the adjectives. I love it, and the exclamation points. Not necessarily just local. I've always kept people in my database who are clients, and when they moved out of the area, they still have relationships here. Now, I may classify them differently. I may have core advocates that are out of area, and so all that goes into classifying your database. And yet the big filter is, for this purposes of this database, are they people I know and like? Are they people that know me and ideally like me, and they're people that I would willing to call? If they're not local and I don't think they have real relationships here, I'm probably not going to call them. And yet I might have them in my database as a placeholder, or hey, if you ever know anybody coming in the area, maybe it's somebody you choose to stay connected with. And yet I'd probably classify them as out of area, and they could still be chunked down in my 2 DTD2 groups, and they just don't get the phone call. and I may have them on a select part of my drip campaign and not my direct mail campaign if I don't think there's real opportunity there. So that's part of what we get into in session 2, Shonda. We dig into classifying your database a little bit, and a lot of it depends on the nature of the relationship and what do they have back here. Okay. Yeah, when we get into, we have a program in our, sorry, Jackie. Jackie says, is there a market update report you specifically send to them or do a MLS stats report? The answer is yes. And of course, we have Kelly Snaps now, which is kind of just a snapshot of their market. In my market centers, we have a thing we call Auto Connect, where we have a, what would we call it? We have a content committee where we develop hyperlocal content in the form of email and direct mail content that goes out to our databases. And so it's generic enough that it works for everybody. And we have a local print mail vendor that has everybody's template, and those that infographic all goes into the campaigns of our specific agent. So it comes from them, and yet the committee put it together. That's something you might think about in your market center, and we talk about that as we get later into the program of how we're doing that. Okay. What would be a good goal for database refining prior to the January 4th class? Dan Burling. Dan, it would be running through that filter of who do I know, who knows me, and I'd be willing to call them twice per year. And by the way, not a salesy call. It's going to be a care call, a contribution call, a value added call. And so that'd be the first filter when I think about refining my database. Doesn't mean I go delete everybody else. It just means this is my core, and I'm going to get my core right, and then I can start building upon that. And because my core is where my 10%, 12%, 15% return from a database can come. And so with that in mind, well, that's where we start. All right, Dan, you got it, my friend. 5-star script for farms only. No, it's for your database. Past clients, you could have that conversation with a geographic farm, and it's ideal for your database because that leaves them coming to you all the time when they need that kind of referral. There was on a television program, news segment here last night. In fact, you might look it up, Channel 5, San Antonio. Go to their website. There was an article where a guy hired a contractor from Angie's List. There was a story, and it turned out he was a convicted felon, left him high and dry. And Angie's List says that they screen, that they do background checks. And then it turns out this person was certified. Angie's List was a convicted felon and certified, and then Angie's List wouldn't stand behind anything. Terms and conditions said they weren't responsible. And really, Gary said, why does Angie's List even exist? They shouldn't be coming to us. They should be coming to Angie's List. They should be coming to us. And that's why something like around the 5-star script can be so powerful. It's building your own personal Angie's List, your own community. Dan, great to have you in the class. Get enrolled, take advantage of the opportunity, and again, getmapsnow.com, and that'll give you the discount and get you enrolled. All right, I think that does it for questions. Ooh, that was a bunch of questions, and we're always here to field them, and we want to be a service to you. You are our database, and trust you got great value from the class today. Thanks, folks. Have a great one. Hey, remember when you do the work, your referrals, well, they're going to be never ending, folks. And this is not just a sit and listen class. It's get in, it's roll up your sleeve. It's make your database work. It's getting tactical. It's going from E to P. Take care, folks. We're signing off. And remember, fasttrack@kw.com. If you got further questions, we look forward to hearing from you. Take care.